We're going to have Commander Turner come up and share with us about sharing on board a ship. There's another venue.
Good evening, everyone. I guess it's afternoon now. Almost wrapping up here. But a lot of points that are needed to be taken into consideration while on board a ship are kind of already touched. You know, whether you're in a factory setting or as Todd mentioned, or in a couple of places in office setting. But there are some things that are somewhat different when you start looking at inboard life. And I know we got a lot of Navy people here. You probably can validate this as well. But I think one of the first things that you need to take into consideration when you're teaching a study on a ship, or even planning to teach a study on a ship, and that is look at your own personal stuff in terms of being a testimony. Because if you are not doing your job, you're in uniform, you know, you're slacking off, or you're showing up for work late, then all of a sudden you come with a bright idea to have a Bible study. Chances are you're not going to get too many people that want to come out. So as those of us that are on the ship and we look for opportunities to teach a study, we need to make sure that we're doing what we need to be doing while on the job. I know one of the brothers mentioned that already. But that's critically important because some of these studies that you hold, you don't know who's showing up. The CMC may show up, the command master chief, for those who may not understand that, or the XO might pop his head in there, or your DIVO. So you need to make sure that your testimony in uniform is good to go, and obviously your spiritual testimony as well. As far as locations, we mentioned the mess decks. Obviously that's a good place, but just a couple experiences that we had while on the Truman. One of the suggestions that came up was anchor windlass. That's a pretty large location, but it's noisy. So you have to try to bounce off the pros and cons there. Yes, it's a big location. Yes, it has adequate room for what you need it for, but with a noise overshadow what you're trying to do. And in some cases, like at C9, maybe the fruit is of such that you can deal with that noise. But then again, maybe it's not. And that's a determination that whoever is leading that effort needs to decide, or however many people that are there. I think one of the things that we dealt with, and Brian can contest to, was consistency in terms of locations. Because a lot of times, you got to get permission to be where you're at. And that's another thing I just want to bring up real quickly is, I think the days are gone where we can just claim a spot and just say, hey, I'm going to hold a study here. Again, it falls back to your testimony, and not just your personal testimony, but the testimony of the ministry that you're representing. So if you find a location that you think is ideal, go through the process of identifying who owns that space, and go through the rigor of the process of getting permission for that space. It's not hard, and it's definitely doable. I think that's one of the things that they will eventually appreciate in terms of your chain of command as they see that you're following that protocol. So, okay, Roger, we're looking for a space. We find it, but a lot of times you're competing with other efforts. There's a lot of people on the ship who is trying to find locations to put on different functions. So you got to kind of build in some type of flexibility there. But as much as possible, as the brother mentioned earlier, consistency is the key. So you need to try to figure out where can you hold this study that it won't get trumped or you won't be asked to relocate. And there's a couple of things that we had figured out while we was on board that we needed to do to try to minimize the number of times we get required be asked to move. It's not much effort at all. All you got to do is look at maybe the POD, for example. The POD kind of gives you a plan of the day. It kind of tells you what the ship's schedule is. So before you try to come with a bright idea of where you want to have a study or what time you want to have a study, you need to look at this plan of the day, plan of the week, so you can get some type of idea of what goes on at a certain period of time. For me, if I want to hold a Bible study somewhere, I probably shouldn't do it at 8 o'clock in the morning. That's when I have captain's call. You might not want to do it at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but that's when your department muster, that's the average time the departments get together after child. So you need to look at the plan of the week, plan of the day, and try to figure out, okay, what is a good time to hold this study? Then once you do that, then you go through the rigor of, okay, where we're going to hold this study. And again, you need to make sure you have permission to do that. Again, time. One brother mentioned, as soon as the study's over, everybody, they scatter. So time is a big factor. So you need to make sure that you take into consideration what other people have going on. The ship, they promote fitness. So, people gonna want to work out. They promote education. They have classes on board the ship. So there's a lot of things that people are competing with in terms of where to allocate their time. And as we, come up with when to have this study and how long this study needs to be, we need to also take that in consideration. Otherwise, you're going to be forcing them to make a decision. And if they're not really engrafted in, they're going to choose working out. They're going to choose going to class. So you need to make sure that, try as much as possible to make sure that your Bible study don't conflict with these other things that are really important for the sailor to do as well. And then you will be able to maximize your attendance. Looking at posting flyers, I know a lot of times we think of, hey, let's just create this flyer and post it all over the ship. Maybe that's not a good idea to do. Maybe in a barracks location, that's something that worked in the past. But on a ship, maybe that's not the proper setting. But hey, it might work out. But again, you gotta go through the proper channels. Enlisted, go talk to the CMC and say, hey sir, math chief, that's all I like to do. Go talk to the chaplain. If you got a space that you like to post something, typically they have a read board in that space. Figure out who owns it. Don't just throw a flyer up there. Figure out who owns that space and then get permission to see if that's okay to do. And they may say, yes, it's okay. Then there you go. That's what you do. In terms of going back to location, we mentioned anchor windlass. And every now and then, we were just about to fight that. And everybody knows the lifestyle on the carrier. Every 5 minutes or so, got this jet taking off. So we're like, okay, what other place to do it? So for a while there, we just like, okay, let's just walk around the ship. We got to find somewhere else. Like for the time being, that's what we had, so we made best do with it. But we realized that maybe it's not conducive to what we have going on. So some of the brothers mentioned the mess deck, some of the brothers mentioned classrooms, the chapel, the library. And we wound up going to, I think, one of the classrooms. I think that might have been your idea, Mr. Brian. So that was an excellent place. We started going to the classrooms. But guess what? Everybody on the ship realized that was the best place to be. So there again, we start competing with other people wanting to do functions. And so it could be challenging, but we don't throw up our hands. We just continue to work within the environment that we're working in. But there are things that we can do to try to minimize, confusion and maximize participation. As far as during the study, this was mentioned also, we need to make sure that we establish a process. Obviously, if we're looking at a time frame, 30 minutes, 45 minutes or so, but within that time frame, we need to make sure that we take our time to greet everybody's there, everybody that show up. Just make a point to do that. That should be built into your routine to acknowledge everybody that walk through those doors. And if there's visitors, you need to key in on that. You need to make sure that the visitor know that he's welcome, and to let them know a little bit about what's going on. Even though you might already cover some at the beginning of the study, and the visitor walk in, you need to take a little time out and make sure that individual is greeted and kind of bring them up to speed on why you're there and what you're doing. And definitely afterwards, I think one of the brothers mentioned follow-up. Carrier, 5,000 people. We spent a lot of time trying to track down people that showed up. That's kind of what we do. But to help that process out is to acquire as much information as you possibly can during that study, or definitely before that person leaves. So we can do just that. Follow up with them. Liberty ports. That's another thing. That's pretty unique to the Navy environment. You might have 100 people show up at your Bible study when you're steaming in the middle of nowhere, but as soon as you pull in Bahrain or one of these ports, people disappear. So what do you do about that? It's going to require a little coordination prior to the fact. You can't wait till the day of and try to, come up with some type of rally point. No, these are things that you have to be thinking about, as soon as you start teaching this study, as soon as that new person comes in this door, and the ship's schedule, you're like, man, we're going to pull in port in about a week. So I need to start working on trying to figure out what we're going to do. And I was pleased to see that, whenever I go out on Liberty, I saw a lot of the brothers, hanging out together. That was awesome. Based on our relationship, it's kind of a little difficult to do between me and them, but it was awesome to see those guys hanging together. And whenever I walk up to them and I'd be like, hey, where's so-and-so? He'd be like, yeah, we couldn't find him. You know, and that just reinforces the fact that, hey, we gotta, you know, okay, what went wrong? You know, did a person just say, I got other things to do, or do we just not reach out to them? You know, and in this case, you know, they just said they had other things to do. But again, you know, do we go through that process? And we can't wait to the last minute. And another thing is, as your testimony develops, as a sailor, again, initially, then as a spiritual leader, as people start seeing you consistently at various locations, you might be tasked or asked to participate on the ship. You know, a lot of times the CEO may walk up to me or the chaplain, hey, Eric, I need you to fill in, not teach a study or anything of that capacity, but hey, I just need you to, you know, to be there at an event that something happens. Or you know, at various events, you know, the skipper may say, Eric, could you do this? Because he knows my testimony. And the same thing may happen to you as your testimony spread throughout the ship. You know, the CMC, he'll call on you and say, because he knows your testimony, and you need to be ready to and willing to walk through that door. I think, but one of the keys is, if you're one of those individuals that are, you know, doing your job, doing it well, excelling, you'd be surprised of how many opportunities, how many doors were open. I mean, there were times I was on watch. And normally when you're on watch, you know, that's kind of where you are, and there's no ifs and buts, you know, you're going to stay there. But I'll tell the TL, whoever, I say, I got to teach a Bible study in an hour. Is it okay? He'd be like, no problem, because he knows my testimony while on watch. But if I was the type of guy that he had to constantly look for, but now I'm telling him, hey, can I, you know, step away for 20 minutes or 30 minutes to teach a Bible study or to be part of a Bible study, he won't receive that. And vice versa. But there are some unique challenges. But in the big scheme of things, the testimony requirements, the follow-ups, the rigor in identifying a suitable location, it's pretty much the same across the board. And I think we all have our various nuances that we need to take into consideration. I think that no matter where you are in your employment scale, you probably can learn a little bit from each of the speakers that came up, and we can find a spot to where we can apply that and we'll benefit from it. But consistency, you know, and testimony, that'll pretty much take you the distance. Thank you.